Okay, great. Well, I think we're right on the hour, so I think we're ready to get things started. And are all of our attendees able to hear everything now, Chris Hamlin?
Yep, should be good to go.
Great.
Excellent.
Wonderful. This is great. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name's Heather Williams, and I lead the project management team here at TrialStat. TrialStat's a global provider of unified eClinical technology and data management visualization solutions designed for innovative life sciences companies. I'll be your host and moderator today, and I'm pleased to be joined by our fantastic panel, my colleagues Chris Hamlin, who is our business unit head, and Christopher Katta, as well as our partners in the presentation today, Bill Lynch, who is the Director of Business Development with Fujifilm Medical Systems, Fujifilm Teramedica, and John Cecchini, Chief Technologist at SimpleTrials CTMS. Today we're presenting Leveraging the Power of Interoperable eClinical Technology to Run Efficient Clinical Trials. Today's agenda, if we can just move to the next slide, please, includes individual presentations by each of our speakers with a panel discussion in between each, and we'll end it with a final group conversation and Q&A. Before I hand things over to your presenters, just a little bit of housekeeping to cover. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the Q&A channel, and I'll bring them up during the presentation when possible, if they're related to the current topic. We'll also have plenty of time at the end for some question and answers. If you do have any technical issues, please use the chat feature to notify us, and if there's anything we can do to assist, we'll happily do so. And lastly, with COVID-19, I'm sure many of you are working from home, as is our presentation team today. We apologize in advance for any background interruptions should they occur. Hopefully all kids, pets, and other distractions are kept to a minimum. Now, without further ado, we'll turn time over to our speakers, who will each provide a short introduction about their company and technology and introduce how they are leveraging interoperability to better support their clients. Then we'll dig into the themes of our session in a bit more detail during the panel discussions and closing conversation. So now I'd like to introduce my colleague, Christopher Katta, to begin the webinar. So Christopher, can you please get us started?
Excellent. Thank you, Heather. Welcome, everyone. As Heather mentioned, my name is Christopher Katta, and I'm the Director of Sales and Marketing for TrialStat Solutions, Inc. Thank you to everyone for joining us today as we take you through an interactive discussion of the efficiency and value you'll gain by using an open and interoperable data management platform which leverages the best-in-class technologies such as TrialStat's EDC platform, SimpleTrials CTMS, and the vendor-neutral imaging archive from Fujifilm Teramedica. And I don't think you realize, but we're actually not all in the same room. So we're using some very special technology to try and bring us all together for this panel. At TrialStat, we've been developing our eClinical suite for the last 17 years. And we're always looking forward in the clinical trial landscape and developing the right set of new features to support our CRO partners and our sponsors so that they can run novel clinical trials not only today, but also in the future. Our vision is to provide our clients with an open data management platform which takes advantage of integrated features such as randomization, ePro, eSource, medical coding, safety management, CTMS, imaging, and much more, all while leveraging our open API to integrate with the tools and technologies they too have standardized on. A data management platform should be scalable from both a features perspective and flexible in its pricing models specifically to support all clinical studies from feasibility through phase 1, 2, and 3, and into post-marketing, as well as supporting the unique requirements of medical device studies and diagnostics. By doing so, we're enabling our partners to gain efficiency in their clinical trials by reducing the number of vendors they need to evaluate and contract with. Having been in the data management business for so many years and having partnered with so many different vendors, we've developed a keen understanding of what we look for in our technology and service partners. We look for companies that believe in continuously improving their technology and innovating on it, have flexible pricing models to adapt to clients' requirements, and believe in partnering, and also which have a similar corporate culture as ours. We believe these traits are what most sponsors are looking for as well. We chose SimpleTrials CTMS because they share all of these same values, including an outstanding technology platform. And we chose to partner with Fujifilm Teramedica with their vendor-neutral imaging archive because this technology has up until now not been financially viable for clinical trials, as the technology is usually integrated with very large institutions. Through our partnership, we're enabling this incredible technology for use within clinical trials. We review and curate medical wearable devices to more accurately capture real-world data, such as ongoing patient vital signs, ECGs, and more, as well as working with validated machine learning programs in the SAMD category to use in clinical trials. We proactively contract with these vendors and make their technology available on the TrialStat platform. All of these efforts combine in such a way that enables studies to launch within a 2 to 4 week timeframe. And our project management teams are in effect an extension of your clinical team. Next slide, please. At its heart, TrialStat is an EDC platform for running clinical trials, but it's much more than that, particularly for those who wish to take advantage of our additional capabilities. TrialStat is the most interoperable data management platform on the market today. TrialStat is a software as a service solution hosted by us in our data center, is a single sign-on and multi-tenant solution with only one URL and one username and password to remember, runs on the fastest networking infrastructure available, including solid-state storage drives. It's also 21 CFR Part 11 compliant, has fully customizable workflows and CRF layouts, provides real-time data reporting, analytics, and data extracts on demand as well. So now let's have a brief look at the entire TrialStat platform. At its core is our EDC technology. Wrapped around our entire platform is a robust application programming interface, our API, which we use to connect into third-party technologies and systems. We provide customized role-based security for all users of the platform, including PIs, coordinators, and patients through our ePro module. The same is true for sponsors, CRO team members, data managers, monitors, and more. For imaging-based studies, we use Fujifilm's VNA and customizable workflow to capture imaging from sites or core labs, route them over our high-speed network, de-identify them, and then make them available for adjudication within EDC using our browser-based validated DICOM viewer. Using our API, we can connect into any other third-party technology, such as EMR and EHR systems to capture real-world data, CTMS software, as we have done with SimpleTrials, safety systems, and medical devices, including wearables and software as a medical device technologies. Data coming from these third-party systems is securely routed into our data center and made available within EDC and our reporting and analytics platform. After the trial is completed, both the clinical data and the associated imaging data sets reside in our data lake, where it is available to sponsors for further use. Clinical trial and imaging assets can be combined with additional third-party data sets that we proactively license through data partners to use for bespoke machine learning programs with our machine learning team. In addition, we can make these data sets available programmatically for our sponsors to share with other partners they may be working with. In fact, sponsors can use or they can take advantage of our data lake by loading our prior clinical trial and imaging assets, which were not collected using TrialStat. Lastly, we have a powerful reporting and analytics platform called Portal, which is built on Power BI. Our reporting portal provides all of the customizable reports and dashboards you require to fully understand the performance of your clinical programs, letting the study teams make decisions in real time. We're actively developing the technology platform, partnerships, and integrations to dramatically streamline the process of designing and running novel clinical trials. Through our API, we integrate with any third-party technology, including your existing preferred partners and even other EDC platforms. That's what we mean by an unparalleled interoperability. And with that, I'd like to return to the panel for some questions.
You're on mute, Heather.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Great. Thanks, Chris. To get the panel discussion started, I have a quick question to get us kicked off. So if all other things were equal, let's say cost, timelines, overall product quality, what differentiates your individual platforms, and maybe more specifically your integrated approach, from other solutions in the marketplace? Perhaps a better way to ask that would be maybe what qualities in the products and services and attributes in the team do you look for, and that the clients may want to look for when you select industry partners such as the team we have here today to best provide a seamless, interoperable solution for clients. Chris Hamlin, maybe I can direct this to you to get this started.
Thank you, Heather. The primary focus we take when bringing in partners is so we can provide a team that both supports your needs, but also not just from a software perspective, but anything you need from one consistent and provide a confidence in the software that you have. The focus here is mainly around providing the tools you need, but the support team behind it. So if you were bringing in 5 different software vendors, you don't have a single point of contact. It creates a lot of complexity and difficulties where your sites, your different groups may not be able to integrate or communicate from the data perspective. We look to combine that into one powerful platform. The benefit here is we choose partners that all meet those similar requirements. TrialStat believes that services is a very important part of the software we provide. We have we choose project management and support based on providing the responsiveness that we need on a personal basis. All of our partners meet those same requirements. Additionally, we'll bring that in-house. We'll integrate our partners with us and provide the contracting needs, the billing, and all of those factors to have that one point of contact, but also all of the support of those vendors.
Great, thanks. And I'll turn it open to the entire team to just jump in at all. I know a couple of the questions that we had received in advance were just about understanding a little bit about risk and access to real-time data and quality. And so one of the things about having an interoperable system means that you can actually address those a little bit more. So just to open up to the panel about what you have to say about the concept of selecting a team as we have with this group that we have here today.
Sorry, go ahead, John. No, go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to add a couple things from the technology side, doing CTMS, where on our side, it's a vast set of functionality and a vast set of challenges that we're helping study teams address. So looking for depth of experience and looking for partners with that customer success mentality and feeling a passion for helping our customers and helping our customers achieve success is critical. And we found that with the group that's here today. So we're delighted to be here.
Great. Bill, did you have any thoughts about sort of what you think that not only do you as a member of Fujifilm look for your partners, but also maybe things that our attendees might want to be looking for when they're trying to find a team that's really working well together?
Absolutely. Thank you, Heather. I think what common themes that are important to us and that you'll hear today from both TrialStat and SimpleTrials is making the user experience and the workflow as streamlined as possible. So being able to work with your data, regardless of the data type, when you want to work with it from your system of choice. There's a lot of really valuable information that's collected in the course of clinical trials that drives tremendous value, but it only drives value if you can access it and work with it from your systems of choice. So we are very, very happy to be partnering with TrialStat and SimpleTrials, two companies who share our same philosophy, our same vision, our same culture about creating workflows, enabling workflows that streamline work for our clients and help drive the best outcomes.
That's great. Thanks, Bill. Yeah, there's a lot to be said for just what you don't see behind the curtain is really nice to know is being taken care of by a very professional group that all works very well together, and taking that off of the clients so they don't have to try and figure that out, and being able to make sure that we can offer that already ready to go for them. Christopher, did you have anything that you wanted to add?
Yeah, I just would add that unfortunately, not all vendors in the life sciences space like to work collaboratively. You know, there is oftentimes a lot of tension and a reluctance to partnership and sharing, not only capabilities, but in that sense of partnership and integration. And so it does require some effort to actually find the right partners, and that's one of the reasons why we chose SimpleTrials and Fujifilm, but also all of the other technology and services partners we work with.
I think one important thing to bring up as towards the end of this is, by bringing all these partners together in this cohesive manner, we reduce our overall risk of the clinical trial. We reduce a lot of the time that is required to bring a trial to realization, and we bring better quality data, which is very, very important.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, great. Unless anybody has anything else that they wanted to jump in on around that, I think what we'll do is we will move on to our next presenter right now. So without further ado, I'd like to pass things over to Bill, who's going to talk to us a little bit about Fujifilm Teramedica and their imaging platform.
Thanks, Heather, and hi to everybody out there who's been kind enough to take time out of your very busy day to join us today. As I mentioned, we're thrilled to be working with TrialStat and SimpleTrials, and we're thrilled to be here with all of you today, sharing the news that you can take control of your medical images. So first, who am I and who are we? So I'm Bill Lynch. I head up partnerships at the Teramedica division of the global medical imaging company Fujifilm Medical Systems. Teramedica is the group within Fujifilm that focuses on imaging interoperability and informatics. We have a long track record in helping organizations all over the world take control of their images, over 20 years of experience. And each year, our clients trust us to enable them to manage their images. This year, more than 15 billion images are being managed through our software. Next slide, please, Matt. So I'd like to quickly level set with you on a few terms I'll reference in our short time with you this morning. First, imaging informatics. This focuses on how medical images are retrieved, analyzed, enhanced, stored, and exchanged. Next is interoperability, and you'll be hearing that not just from me, but you've already heard it from TrialStat, and you'll hear it from John as well. But interoperability is extremely important. It's one of the key aspects of this partnership. And interoperability is the characteristic of a product or a system to be able to work with other products or systems without restrictions, and most importantly, without human intervention. And this leads us to our third term, imaging liquidity, which is the ability to work with your images and associated metadata from systems of your choice. For example, in this case, working with your images through your TrialStat system. And I'm going to come back to imaging liquidity in a minute. Next slide, please, Matt. So obviously, images play a huge part in clinical trials, but they are playing an ever increasingly important part throughout all phases of drug development. Digital medical images, whether they're CTs, MRIs, ultrasounds, digital pathology studies, PET scans, even natural light photos, videos, and so on, are playing increasingly important roles throughout all phases of drug development. Just a few examples up here. Imaging helps answer specific questions, for example, around whether the new drug candidate reaches a target, and if so, in sufficient quantity, or whether the expected mechanism of action can be observed. Imaging biomarkers also help make objective decisions on drug safety and efficacy sooner, reducing overall R&D timelines and costs through effective early phase trials. And then we're seeing even more innovative use of images, for example, in creating synthetic control groups. Next slide, please, Matt. Now, it's great to have all of these use cases that involve imaging, but to enable those use cases, you need to be able to work with images in your systems of choice. And that's where this concept of imaging liquidity comes in. So what is imaging liquidity? Why is it important? Well, imaging liquidity means storing images and the associated metadata, those hundreds of very rich data fields that accompany your images, in ways that they can be easily searched and worked with by your system, software systems of choice, like TrialStat. Imaging liquidity is different. It's really bigger and more valuable than just viewing the images. Viewing the images is obviously important, but that's just one way to work with, to interact with your images and imaging data. And this, again, is regardless of the imaging type. So whether it's traditional radiographic images or non-traditional multimedia clinical outputs, such as natural light photos and digital pathology, they all have rich sets of information that can be extremely valuable to you. Next slide, please, Matt. So you're probably saying, well, of course, I want to work with my images and metadata, but I've been told by colleagues or some of our partners that that's just not possible. So why can't I just search across our platforms and our archives to find what I need and work with it? Well, the primary roadblock you're going to find is to work with images across platforms. You're going to find that the images are typically stored in platforms and archives that weren't built to share images with other systems. They're not what we call interoperable. Remember that term from a couple of minutes ago? They're not interoperable with other systems. That means it's extremely hard, if not impossible, to search your systems and archives, find what you need, and work with what you need for your purpose in your software of choice. So in essence, your images get stuck in other systems and they're not available to you. But don't worry, we've got that problem licked. Next slide, please, Matt. The solution to this problem is something called the Imaging Vendor Neutral Archive, or VNA for biotech. It's a global Fujifilm software service now available through our partner TrialStat. The VNA is very flexible and interoperable. It seamlessly connects to source systems and archives where your images are currently stored, like your imaging CRO platforms and other archives. It extracts copies of the images and the associated metadata from those source systems and archives. It stores the copies of the images and the metadata in secure, standard formats that make the information workable from downstream software systems. So remember that term, imaging liquidity? That's what the Imaging VNA for biotech is enabling. And by indexing that metadata of all the systems, now all of your images can be searched in less than a second from your TrialStat EDC, and you can easily access and work with the images you want to. So you spend much more time working with your images, not trying to find them and import them. Next slide, please, Matt. So what makes the Imaging VNA special and uniquely qualified to help you take control of your images and your imaging data? Well, there's a few things. First, it was designed from the ground up over the past 20 years to enable imaging liquidity, finding and working with images in one system that originated in other systems. Second, its multidisciplinary, multi-study, and cross-enterprise capabilities are essential for today's and tomorrow's biotech work. It performs regardless of the vendor or the technology of the source and receiving systems, because it is vendor and technology neutral and uses a wide variety of standards-based connectivity methods. The VNA stores images in their native standards-based formats so they can be fully utilized by downstream systems. For instance, data science, translational medicine, big data, even training algorithms. And all that rich data that is in the metadata that accompanies each image gets put into a database to make it very easy for you to quickly search and access what you need, typically in less than a second. A few other important aspects of the Imaging VNA for biotech. First, it allows you to store your images in whatever hierarchies work best for you and your colleagues, whether that's by trial, by study, by division, by data type, whatever works for you. And those hierarchies can be adjusted at any time to ensure they best match your workflow needs. Access to the images can also be limited by user role and purpose. So each colleague can access and work with only the images they're allowed to. And it also has full background auditing so you can see who accessed what, when, and from what system. Obviously, you want to be sure it's 21 CFR Part 11, GDPR and HIPAA ready, which the imaging VNA is. Another very appealing aspect of the VNA and an appealing aspect of the partnership with TrialStat and SimpleTrials is that the VNA is configured and live quickly, typically in weeks, not months, and certainly not years. And finally, and I can't stress this enough, the VNA augments, not replaces your current systems. It essentially makes them more interoperable because your systems and those of your partner CROs are very valuable to you. You're used to working with them. So the VNA enables them to be able to share and work with images in ways that they couldn't before. Next slide, please, Matt. I'm obviously not going to go through this entire slide, but as you think about the kinds of images and multimedia digital clinical output that you want to be able to work with, feel confident that the imaging VNA for biotech can work with the widest array of image types: digital pathology, fused images, MRIs, CTs, reports, scan documents. It really doesn't matter. The VNA enables you to work with a huge array of image types. Next slide, please, Matt. So just a few illustrations of how the VNA works. So with the VNA, as I mentioned earlier, you can store your images in ways that best meet your needs. Our patented configurable storage hierarchy allows us to quickly, easily, and securely create custom storage approaches that work best for you. Next slide, please. You can search for images from your TrialStat system using any of the hundreds of metadata fields that we store in less than a second. Next slide, please, Matt. And as I mentioned, imaging liquidity means being able to work with the images and the metadata from systems of your choice. So you can use our viewer or yours to work with your system. Our viewer launches directly from the TrialStat EDC system. It's zero footprint, web-based diagnostic quality viewer that lets you work with different images, different types of images on one screen, as you can see here. You can even collaborate with colleagues around the world from this viewer. But again, you can use any standards-based viewers that work best for you and your colleagues. Next slide, please, Matt. And as I also mentioned earlier, access to the images and associated metadata can be configured by user role. So for example, one colleague may have access to only images from a certain product group, while another may have access to all of them. And there's also full real-time auditing running in the background so you can track access to any of the stored images. Next slide, please, Matt. So in summary, TrialStat plus Fujifilm ensures that you can take control of your images for whatever use case you have in mind. You can now search, find, and work with your images from your TrialStat system and other systems of choice. You can work with the widest range of data types. And this approach augments, not displaces, systems and archives that you already have in place. And it's cloud-based, scalable, and flexible to meet your needs now and in the future. So with that, I'll pass things back to Heather. Heather?
Thank you so much, Bill. That was great. So to to start up the panel discussion around this, maybe Bill, I'll start with you with a question, but I also would like to hear from everybody else on the panel, just to understand a little bit about, why did Fujifilm Teramedica make the decision to partner with TrialStat? This is obviously really, a first in the industry approach to how we're managing the data between the two types of technology. Why you made the decision to partner with TrialStat out of the many platforms in the space to bring VNA technology to clinical trials through integration, and then sort of potentially, from the other members of the panel, how does that benefit them in the long term and what they can provide back to the user? So what's that final impact for users when all this data is integrated?
Well, first, as far as why we selected to work with TrialStat, most importantly, it's the people. Technology, and we all have wonderful technology, but great technology comes from even greater people. So we admire the people at TrialStat and what they've done to create a very interoperable, agnostic approach to working with clinical information in the biopharma space. So we share a lot of the same philosophies, both from a business standpoint as well as from a technology standpoint. But the most important philosophy we share is that it should be easy for you to work with your clinical information. It shouldn't be difficult. And the ability to work with images combined with other clinical information within the TrialStat platform was just made the case for us. And then as far as benefit to the end user, I think what we've all tried to do is come together to create virtual experiences for the user that allows them to get their jobs done easily, seamlessly, regardless of where the data is coming from. That's the most important aspect of interoperability and data liquidity, is being able to get at the data you need easily, quickly, securely, and work with it in the systems of your choice. So that's something that we've all come together to guarantee to the users who choose to work with us.
That's great. Thanks so much. And Chris Cata, did you have anything you wanted to add on that?
Yeah. Thanks, Bill. That's absolutely so true. We at TrialStat are technology enthusiasts, and to be honest, we don't like the word no. So we work really hard every day to find the best technology out there, and evaluate it in advance and make sure that it's the right technology for the partners that we work with, as opposed to waiting for a trial to come along that needs to take advantage of a technology that we've never even considered. So we want to make it as easy and seamless for our clients, both sponsors and CROs, to leverage these technologies. And that's on the imaging side. It's been one of the hardest challenges we've seen so far in running image-based trials. And our partnership with Fujifilm is making all of that much more easy.
And John, I think when we were talking about this before this session, I know you mentioned that and we'll get into it a little bit more once you have a chance to do your presentation very shortly. I know you talked about the fact that there's a lot that you can do from a CTMS perspective if there's a way to get at that data. Did you have anything that you wanted to add?
Yeah, thank you, Heather. SimpleTrials has a number of features to support clinical studies that have a strong imaging component to them. That includes being able to track those key milestones and status values as you're setting up your sites. It includes handling images, the imaging and the read costs and fees that are associated with your subject payments. And so when that can be part of your interoperability program and have that data feeding into the CTMS and then leveraging that data for the clinical team to track study startup and to track your subject payments, I think that's a real benefit to the clinical operations side of things.
Yeah, so it sounds like, underneath all of the technology is really the people power part, which is, letting the people who have a role do what they need to do and do their work best versus having to worry about all of these things that they would naturally, if they didn't have this kind of integration, have to try and handle manually. So we like to refer to it sometimes when we're working with our clients as Excel hell. And no one likes to be in that world where they're trying to wrangle a whole bunch of data from a lot of different sources in one place. And often they have better things that they could do with their time. So it is about resource management, not just about technology.
Well, and just to add on that, the technologies that we've developed and are providing are incredibly complex, and those technologies shouldn't get in the way of designing and running a clinical trial. They should be enabling it. And by letting us focus on the heavy lifting side of this technology, it allows the clinical teams to focus on running the trial itself.
That's great. Fantastic. Okay, great. Well, why don't we turn things over to John and we could talk a little bit about SimpleTrials CTMS. That'd be great.
Thank you so much, Heather. Delighted to be here with our distinguished panel and our wonderful audience today. Thank you so much. My name is John Cecchettini. I am the co-founder and CTO at Trial by Fire Solutions, who brings you the SimpleTrials CTMS. Next slide, please. Couple of quick things before we jump into the details. What is a clinical trial management system? It's a specialized, comprehensive project management application that has the features to take the study team from startup through enrollment and monitoring to study close. Next slide, please. A little bit about us. Our company, Trial by Fire Solutions, was founded back in 2008. We're based in Oakland, California. Our team has decades of direct industry experience managing clinical studies, and we pour that into our products and our support for our clients. We have 12 plus years of focused experience on CTMS, building, designing, supporting CTMS products. And I believe that really sets us aside from any other companies providing CTMS out there. I don't believe anyone has been focused on this space for so long, and that really gives us a ton of experience that we leverage for our clients. So SimpleTrials is our second CTMS product. It was released back in 2016. We have a global user footprint, 40 plus countries. The system is validated and compliant. And most importantly, through our support team, our services, and our leadership, our goal is to collaborate with our clients to make study management easier. Next slide, please. So a little bit about the features that are included in a CTMS. It's a long list. You can see our navigation over to the right there. Just to hit a couple of highlights, the CTMS includes contact and organization management, trial master file and document management, study startup, calendar site visit tracking for your monitoring needs, subject enrollment, visit tracking, electronic visit reports, contracts and payments, dashboards and analytics, 21 Part 11 controls, and we bring that to you through an easy-to-use web-based interface that supports these features through built-in trackers, workflows, and reports, all of which are very flexible and easily customizable. Next slide, please. So how is SimpleTrials different than the other options out there? We focus on a product that's easy to use and easy to adopt. One of the ways that we do that is through our interoperability with others. So we focus on being a best-in-class CTMS provider, and we love to collaborate with the other clinical software, the other critical systems out there to bring that data into the CTMS and to make it all that more useful for our clients. We also have innovative features for customization. We have, you have the ability to expand the trackers with custom fields throughout the system, so you can track the items that are important to you, and you can even build your own tracker views in Simple CTMS to get you off of those worksheet trackers that most studies are still using in some capacity. We have transparent subscription pricing. It's published directly on our website. We have a compliance portal for quality oversight from our clients. And then lastly, we bring our extensive 12 plus years of CTMS experience to your team in your study. Next slide, please. With EDC integration, that's the most common type of integration that we do with the CTMS. The goal is to populate the CTMS with subject and visit data from EDC that can then be leveraged for efficient study management and oversight. And that typically includes subject records and key subject data, includes subject visit information, including dates and status values, and it can include protocol deviations. And this is brought to you in an automated nightly transfer. So we help you get it set up, turn it on, and then it occurs automatically behind the scenes, and you don't have to worry about it. Next slide, please. Some of the benefits of integration on the CTMS side is that automatic data population of subject and visit data, it eliminates a significant amount of data entry, manual data entry for your team, especially if you have a high enrolling study. Subject payments can be, you can leverage that data from EDC to have automatic generation of payment tracking records based on qualified visits. It helps with site monitoring. It supports the subject tracking areas of electronic visit reports. It can help you with risk-based monitoring in terms of being able to track actual dates versus the target windows for your subject visits. So you can see what sites are tending to be out of window with their subject visits. And then also with insights and analytics. And there's a bit more on insights on the next slide. So let's go ahead and jump to the next slide, please. In terms of real-time insights, we have dashboards that allow you to look at enrollment progress at a glance, such as the enrollment curve there that's showing you the targets versus actuals. We know that chart in particular is rolled into a lot of weekly teams with the leadership of the clinical trial team to be able to easily track overall status. And also there's a chart there that helps you track at the site level, track your enrollment based on your target for each site. So you can track targets versus actuals, and the actuals roll up from the subject level to the site level to the study level, and then even to portfolio level where you can run cross-site reports. Next slide, please. So to wrap things up, with an integrated and interoperable CTMS, our goal is to simplify study management and reduce your study timelines and costs. And we do that through a number of ways, through collaboration, efficiency, oversight, and compliance. Thank you so much. We can move on to the panel discussion.
Great. Thanks so much, John. That was really informative. So as we move into a bit of a panel discussion, I know one of the questions that a lot of people want to know when they are an end user and they're thinking about purchasing technology or figuring out what they might need to do is an understanding about what best practices or guidance we give clients during the design piece. And I'm going to actually ask Christopher this first, just to talk a little bit about, from an EDC perspective, what do we do when we think about the design and the development of the ECRF so that when we hand off and facilitate interoperability with other systems, specifically CTMS, how do we partner with clients to make that integration successful? And I'm going to start with you, Chris, since it's sort of the data flows that way, and then John, I'd love your input right after that.
Thank you, Heather. Yeah, it really begins with a thorough understanding of the protocol and the specific study requirements, making sure those key data points are obviously mapped into the electronic case report forms, and then mapping those through to the CTMS so that we can ensure that the right clinical data is flowing into the CTMS, whether that's from the ECRF or from the imaging that we're capturing.
Great, thanks. And John, from at the end, you're obviously providing that interface to those clients that are really needing to get that data in real time and manage all that. What do you make in terms of recommendations to clients when they're thinking sort of with that end in mind when they're getting started?
Yeah, thank you, Heather. So we're a strong advocate of using best-of-class products. We focus on just CTMS because it's a very challenging domain, and there's such a vast range of functionality that we bring to our clients. So it's really critical for us to be able to integrate and interoperate with other systems. So we bring a proven process so that we can guide our clients through it, and they don't have to worry about the integration piece. So we have a spec document that we use. We have a call with our clients and with TrialStat as the EDC vendor, and we have a list of questions that we ask the client, and we can some of which we might already know from looking at the study protocol to help guide just a few decisions that need to be made in terms of what data points need to be collected and what are sort of the critical parts of that integration that we need to make sure that we do right on the CTMS side. And then we use that client feedback to collaborate with TrialStat to then map in those data points, make sure that the few touch points that we have across systems are set up correctly, and then we use features that are built into SimpleTrials to enter the settings for the mapping across systems. We set it live, and then both we as well as our clients can then monitor the integration, since it's all there's no behind the scenes programming that's required. It's all set up directly through the application, so they have the ability to make any changes that they wish, as well as monitor the status of those nightly integrations.
Got it. So really what you're saying is if you're working, and again, to tie in that theme about interoperability, if you're working with a team that's already got that all in place, it's taking a lot of that heavy lifting off of those teams at the sponsor or the CRO side, and they can't be experts in all technologies in all places and really rely on us to be able to do that. So it's really nice to be able to have a team that's already put that in place and works really well together to eliminate a lot of that work for them. Chris and Bill, did you have anything you wanted to add before we move on?
Chris,
I think you might be on mute.
So with respect to interoperability and partnering with SimpleTrials or Fujifilm, one of the kind of bigger things that we look at is not just bringing data specifically just to the one trial. The benefit here is that when you look more globally at when you're running multiple trials, this data starts to provide more insight into the next trial that you're going to do. So by bringing all of these partners together, we can bring all of that data into our data warehouse, for example. When we look at Fujifilm's VNA, all of that data is in one place for all of your trials. We can eventually learn for whether we're moving from our phase 2 to our phase 3, so that we can either deploy more efficiently, we can have better automated processes, CTMS can make better monitoring decisions. So having all of that data rolled up into one place is super, super useful, very powerful, and it's one of the key driving forces for us and why interoperability is important. By bringing all of these partners together into one place, we make sure the data is available to you not just now, but also later.
That's great. It's sort of the concept of that future proofing, because sometimes what we find is that in conversations with clients, when we talk to them, when they're making a decision, this is, every trial, they're going through the full process of deciding new vendors every single time. And, and if you can find providers who can meet that breadth of everything that you need across the entire spectrum of that particular program or even entire portfolios, then that reduces a lot of cost and time and effort and lets those key personnel focus on the work they have to do. Great. Before we move on, Christopher Cata, did you have something you wanted to add?
I would just add that in this, when we say interoperability, we really mean that. And it's not to say that a sponsor needs to use all of TrialStat's technologies, Fujifilm's technologies, and SimpleTrials. It really is about bringing together all of your clinical trial data, regardless of the other systems that you're using. So just as a scenario, you may be doing a small phase 1 with TrialStat's EDC technology, but you've already got say a phase 2 running with another CRO and another partner. You can still use the SimpleTrials platform as your CTMS to manage both the phase 1 and that other phase 2 that's in another system. And the same with imaging. You may not be running an imaging trial with TrialStat, but you want to take advantage of the Fujifilm VNA through us. You can still do that and license that technology to support that other clinical trial. So you can run your other technologies in parallel with the TrialStat platform as well.
So it's really about knowing what's out there that's available and maybe thinking a little bit outside, I hate the term, it's a little generic, but outside the box of
Yeah.
what you might be able to do to better enable, again, with not thinking about what we're doing today, but thinking about what we'll need to do in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years.
Yeah, as we all know, clinical trials are incredibly complex from a vendor perspective. And traditionally, a lot of those vendors don't necessarily like to work together. And what we're doing is working really hard to kind of break down those barriers just to make it easier for CROs and sponsors to run their trials and get them done quicker and more efficiently.
Good stuff. That actually ties really well into a question that I received before the webinar to talk about. And before we jump into it, it's just a reminder to our attendees, if based on everything you've heard today, if you do have any questions, there's a Q&A option in the Zoom that will let you ask any questions. And we do have a few minutes to tie that in. But the question that I wanted to ask was really about, you know, we've talked a lot about what the technology looks like and how it benefits. But, you know, if you're talking to a growing life science team and they're busy and they're maybe understaffed or on a tight time frame, if they're trying to select or improve their systems and solutions for their next study, you know, what advice or questions or process could you recommend with relationship to vendor selection from the vendor side that maybe would help them have a smoother and easier time to find those right partners, particularly under this kind of umbrella we're talking about of interoperability and future-proofing? And I'm not sure who wants to jump in first. Christopher Cata, why don't I go with you, because you got a smile on your face, and
Sure.
then we'll turn it out to the rest of the team.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. You know, we, having been on the vendor side, we receive a lot of RFIs and RFPs, and we do obviously a lot of bid defenses. And the reality is, at the highest level, let's just say in EDC technology, a lot of them do more or less the same things. You know, they're for capturing data. But the moment you start actually peeling layers off the technology onion, you start to realize that they're all very different in how they are designed, validated, how they're hosted and operated, and so on. So these systems become very different. So my advice is always to think about what you as an organization value most. What is it that you want out of these platforms? Not from necessarily from a features perspective, but from a partnership perspective, because you want to make sure that not only are you picking the right technology, but you're also picking the right teams. And that makes a huge difference. So if you value interoperability and flexibility and customization, that'll help lead you down the right path to choosing vendors that not only have the right features, but can support that value system that you have. So I think that's key.
Yeah, so the idea of, and we've talked about this before, and we talk about it a lot with clients, is that, you know, sometimes it's really nice to have an early touch point where you all get on a call and talk about what you're looking for and get a feel for the team in advance of some of those things, or do a demo or something like that in advance of an RFI or an RFP, because you really can't get those intangibles on a piece of paper. And I would turn it over to Bill or John if either of you would like to comment on that.
Yeah, Heather, the recommendation, the advice I would give to everybody who's on the call is, as you think about what partners you need, don't think about technology first. Think about your workflows and your outcomes, and look at your workflows across your colleagues' needs, because different colleagues have different needs. Once you identify your workflows and your outcomes, it'll probably shed a big light on the partners and the technology to bring to bear to enable those workflows, because your technology and your technology partners should enable your workflows and enable your outcomes, and the technology should not hinder it. So start with the workflow and then work out from there to the technology.
That's Bill, that's a great point. And you know, if you're just starting a phase 1 trial, for example, you shouldn't just be thinking about what you need for the phase 1, but go, you know, 5-6 years forward in what you want in your pivotal trial.
Yep.
because what those decisions you make today are definitely going to impact what you do many years down the road.
And John, I'm sure from a CTMS perspective, you see that same thing.
Absolutely. If I could just share
Mm-hmm.
a few notes about the on-demand design that we have for SimpleTrials. So we really try to put our customers first by providing a system that is going to be ready to go based on our customers' timeframes. And when they're ready for a system, you can go to our website and subscribe to SimpleTrials today and start setting up your trial. It's really that easy, and we're here to support our teams. When you need more features, when you need training, that's all part of our on-demand mentality. We're here for you. We're ready for you. We're ready to bring in our partners, such as TrialStat and Fujifilm, to be able to serve any needs that you have for the study.
So it's about giving them the opportunity to get involved, kind of get things set up, get going, but layering additional services and needs on top of things as they grow and develop what they need to do. We're getting close to the end of time. I don't have any other questions right now. Chris Hamlin, did you have anything you wanted to add before we close things up?
I think to extend on both what I guess everybody here said specifically around Christopher, software is more than just a purchase from a Word document that you might receive in an RFP. It's very important to look behind that. And you're not going to get, if we list all the features we have, we should all come together and see similar outcomes. However, when you look at the software and a company that is transparent in providing a very equal demo as to what you would expect at your sites, a very equal demo on providing details around what their support services would cover, the timelines are super important to make sure that trials are effectively released on time and the quality of data is there. And also companies and software partners that are willing to consider, like Chris said, what is your next stage? What are you looking at your phase 2? What are you looking at your phase 3? And being willing to have those discussions early to make sure that you can be successful.
Great
So it
points.
sounds, yeah, no, those are great. So we're getting close to the end of the hour. We really appreciate everybody who's joined us today, and to my panel, thank you so much for everything that you provided. To everyone who's listening, or those of you who are watching the webinar afterward, there'll actually be a follow-up email that will come out that will send you some information about what we talked about. We'll have a copy of the recording and presentation, a little bit more information about the companies that you heard from today, and then we obviously welcome any follow-up questions that you might have for any of the members of our team. So please reach out. All the contact information will be on that page that we'll send you. And then we'd be happy to follow up and provide more information. But thank you to the panelists. That was really great. And to everyone who joined us today, thank you for spending an hour of your time. I'm sure your days are busy, so we appreciate it. And we wish you all the best. I think we're going to wrap up now.
Excellent. Thank you so much,
Okay.
everyone.
Thank you so much, everybody. Take care.
Bye.
Have a great day.
Thank
Bye.
you.